There is a substance in your kitchen right now that is dissolving your kidneys from the inside. You use it every day. You put it in almost everything you cook. You have been consuming it your entire life. And nobody, not your doctor, not your nutritionist, not a single health headline has ever told you what it is doing to the 1 million tiny filters inside each of your kidneys. I am not talking about alcohol. I am not talking about artificial sweeteners. I am not talking about anything that you would normally consider dangerous. I am talking about something that sits on your counter in your pantry and your refrigerator that you consider a normal, harmless, everyday part of cooking and eating, and it is destroying the organ that keeps you alive. Your kidneys filter approximately 180 liters of blood every single day. They balance your electrolytes. They regulate your blood pressure. They activate your vitamin D. They produce the hormone that tells your bone marrow to make red blood cells. When your kidneys fail, everything fails. And by the time you feel symptoms, you have already lost 60 to 70% of your kidney function. There are no warning signs until it is almost too late. In today's video, I am going to reveal 5 foods and substances hiding in your kitchen that are causing measurable progressive kidney damage every time you consume them. These are not exotic chemicals. These are everyday items that most people use without a second thought. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how each one damages your kidneys at the cellular level, which ones are the most dangerous, and what to use instead. You will know more about protecting your kidneys than most people learn in their entire lives. We are starting with the most common one and working toward the one that shocked me the most when I first read the research. Let us go. A quick note before we get started. Everything in this video is the public version. The 5 foods, the mechanisms, the general guidance, that is what I can share here. The complete protocol, the exact amounts, the daily eating structure, the supplement additions, and the blood workers to watch that is on Patreon for Complete Wellness members. Members also get access to a growing library of unlisted videos covering muscle health after 60, cardiovascular health, supplement stacks, lab interpretation, and more. None of it on YouTube. None of it anywhere else. If you want the full picture and not just the public version, the link is in the bio. All right, now let's get into the video. Food number 1, table salt in excess. I am starting with the most obvious one, but I am going to explain it in a way that your doctor never has, because the problem with salt is not what you think it is. Everyone knows that too much salt raises blood pressure, and everyone knows that high blood pressure is bad for your kidneys. But that is where most explanations stop. They give you the headline without the mechanism. And without understanding the mechanism, you cannot understand why salt is so destructive or how to protect yourself. Here is what actually happens inside your kidneys when you eat too much salt. Your kidneys contain approximately 1 million filtering units called nephrons in each kidney. Each nephron has a tiny ball of capillaries called the glomerulus that filters your blood under pressure. The blood enters the glomerulus through a small artery called the afferent arteriole and exits through an even smaller artery called the efferent arteriole. The difference in size between these two arteries creates the pressure that drives filtration. When you eat excess sodium, your body retains water to dilute the sodium and maintain the proper concentration in the blood. More water means more blood volume. More blood volume means higher pressure throughout the cardiovascular system, including inside the glomerular capillaries. But here is the part nobody explains. The glomerular capillaries are not like the blood vessels in your arms or legs. They are extraordinarily delicate. Their walls are only 1 cell thick in some places. They are designed to operate within a very narrow pressure range. When the pressure inside these capillaries increases due to excess blood volume from sodium retention, the delicate walls are stretched beyond their design limits. This stretching does 2 things. First, it physically damages the capillary walls, causing them to thicken and scar over time. This scarring is called glomerulosclerosis, and it progressively reduces the filtering capacity of each glomerulus. Second, the increased pressure forces proteins through the capillary walls that should not pass through. Albumin, the most abundant protein in your blood, begins leaking into the urine. This protein leakage, called proteinuria, is one of the earliest detectable signs of kidney damage and is itself toxic to the tubular cells downstream. When albumin passes through the glomerulus and enters the tubular system, the tubular cells attempt to reabsorb it. This reabsorption process generates inflammatory signals and oxidative stress within the tubular cells, damaging them and promoting the fibrosis that progressively destroys kidney tissue. So, excess salt does not just raise blood pressure, it creates a cascade. Sodium retention leads to volume expansion, which leads to glomerular hypertension, which leads to capillary wall damage, which leads to protein leakage, which leads to tubular inflammation, which leads to fibrosis, which leads to permanent loss of kidney function. A study published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that high sodium intake was independently associated with accelerated decline in kidney function, even after adjusting for blood pressure. This means salt damages the kidneys through mechanisms beyond just blood pressure elevation. The direct glomerular pressure damage and the protein leakage-driven tubular inflammation occur regardless of what your blood pressure reading says. The average American consumes approximately 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. The kidney protective target recommended by nephrologists is under 2,000 milligrams. Most of the excess sodium does not come from the salt shaker on your table. It comes from processed foods, restaurant meals, canned soups, deli meats, bread, cheese, and condiments. A single can of soup can contain over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. A fast food sandwich can contain 1,500 milligrams. A tablespoon of soy sauce contains over 900 milligrams. These numbers accumulate rapidly across a typical day. The solution is not to eliminate salt entirely. Your body needs sodium to function. The solution is to be aware of the hidden sodium in processed and restaurant foods, to cook more meals at home where you control the salt content, and to use herbs, spices, lemon juice, and vinegar to flavor food instead of relying on salt. One practical tip that makes an immediate difference: do not add salt during cooking. Cook your food without salt and add a small amount at the table if needed. Salt added at the table sits on the surface of the food, where your taste buds detect it immediately. So you need less to achieve the same perceived saltiness. Salt dissolved into food during cooking is distributed throughout the dish where much of it is not tasted, meaning you use more without realizing it. Let me explain one more mechanism of salt damage that most people have never heard of, because it reveals why even moderate sodium excess is so dangerous for aging kidneys. When sodium intake is chronically elevated, the kidneys activate a hormonal system called the Renin-Angiotensin-Aldosterone system as part of the body's attempt to manage the excess. Angiotensin II, the primary hormone in this system, is a potent vasoconstrictor that narrows the efferent arteriole, leaving the glomerulus. This narrowing increases the pressure inside the glomerulus even further, creating a pressure trap where blood is being forced in through a normal-sized entrance but squeezed out through a narrowed exit. This trapped high pressure is called intraglomerular hypertension, and it is the primary mechanical driver of glomerulosclerosis. It is so directly damaging that the most commonly prescribed kidney protective medications, ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers, work specifically by counteracting this mechanism. They relax the efferent arteriole, reducing the pressure trap. But here's the irony. If you keep eating excess sodium while taking these medications, the sodium continues to activate the Renin-Angiotensin-Aldosterone system, partially counteracting the very drugs that are trying to protect your kidneys. You are pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time. The medication works better when sodium intake is controlled. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that restricting sodium intake to under 2,000 milligrams per day enhanced the kidney protective effects of ACE inhibitor medication significantly more than the medication alone. Diet and drugs together were far more effective than drugs alone. There is also a direct toxic effect of sodium on the tubular cells that is independent of blood pressure. Research published in the journal Hypertension found that high sodium concentrations in the tubular fluid activated inflammatory pathways within the tubular cells themselves, promoting local inflammation and fibrosis even in the absence of elevated blood pressure. The sodium is not just a pressure problem, it is a direct chemical irritant to the kidney tissue. Let me give you some perspective on hidden sodium sources that may surprise you. A single slice of bread contains between 100 and 230 milligrams of sodium. If you eat 2 slices of toast at breakfast and a sandwich at lunch, you have consumed 400 to over 900 milligrams of sodium from bread alone before adding any other food. A tablespoon of ketchup contains 160 milligrams. A cup of cottage cheese contains over 700 milligrams. A serving of canned tomato sauce contains over 500 milligrams. These are not foods that taste salty, but they are loaded with sodium. Reading nutrition labels is the single most effective habit for controlling sodium intake. The number to focus on is milligrams of sodium per serving. Add them up across your typical daily meals, and you will likely be shocked at how quickly they exceed 2,000 milligrams. Food number 2, processed and cured meats. Bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, pepperoni, salami, ham, jerky. These are staples in millions of kitchens, and every one of them is causing kidney damage through mechanisms that go far beyond their sodium content. Yes, processed meats are loaded with sodium. A few slices of deli turkey can contain 700 milligrams. 3 strips of bacon contain over 400 milligrams. But the sodium is actually the least concerning part. The real kidney destroyers in processed meat are the phosphate additives, the nitrites, and the advanced glycation end products. Let me start with phosphate additives. Processed meat manufacturers add inorganic phosphate compounds to their products as preservatives, flavor enhancers, and moisture retainers. Sodium tropylphosphate, sodium hexameaphosphate, disodium phosphate. These names appear on the ingredient labels, but most consumers do not know what they are or what they do inside the body. Inorganic phosphate from food additives is absorbed at a rate of approximately 90 to 100%. Compare this to the organic phosphate naturally present in whole foods like beans, nuts, and unprocessed meat, which is absorbed at only 40 to 60%. The additive phosphate enters the bloodstream almost completely, creating a much larger phosphate load than the same amount from natural sources. Your kidneys are responsible for excreting excess phosphate. When the phosphate load is chronically elevated from processed meat consumption, the kidneys must work harder to maintain phosphate balance. This increased workload stresses the tubular cells that handle phosphate excretion, generating oxidative stress and inflammation within the kidney tissue. But the damage goes deeper. Excess phosphate in the blood triggers a hormone called fibroblast growth factor, 23 produced by the bones. This hormone tells the kidneys to excrete more phosphate, which sounds helpful. But fibroblast growth factor, 23, also suppresses the activation of vitamin D in the kidneys. Less active vitamin D means less calcium absorption from the gut, which triggers the parathyroid glands to release parathyroid hormone, which pulls calcium from the bones. The result is a cascade of bone loss, vascular calcification, and progressive kidney damage, all initiated by the phosphate additives in processed meat. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that higher intake of phosphate additives from processed foods was significantly associated with faster decline in kidney function in a large population study. The association was independent of total phosphorus intake, meaning the additive form was specifically more damaging than the naturally occurring form. Now, the nitrites. Sodium nitrite is added to processed meats to prevent bacterial growth and to maintain the pink-red color. In the body, nitrites are converted to nitrosamines, potent carcinogenic compounds. But in the kidneys specifically, nitrites generate reactive nitrogen species that damage the tubular cells and promote the inflammatory and fibrotic processes that destroy kidney tissue. Research published in the journal Nephrology Dialysis Transplantation found that processed meat consumption was associated with a 23% increased risk of developing chronic kidney disease compared to unprocessed red meat consumption. The additional risk was attributed to the additives rather than the meat itself. Then there are the advanced glycation end products. Processed meats, particularly those that are smoked, grilled, or cooked at high temperatures, contain extremely high levels of advanced glycation end products. These compounds are formed when proteins react with sugars at high temperatures. In the kidneys, advanced glycation end products accumulate in the glomerular basement membrane and the tubular cells, promoting oxidative stress, inflammation, and fibrosis through activation of the receptor for advanced glycation end products. The receptor for advanced glycation end products is abundantly expressed in kidney tissue, making the kidneys one of the organs most vulnerable to advanced glycation end product damage. Each serving of processed meat delivers a concentrated dose of these compounds directly to the organ least equipped to tolerate them. My recommendation is straightforward. Minimize processed meat consumption as much as possible. Replace deli meats with freshly cooked chicken or turkey breast that you slice yourself. Replace bacon with eggs or avocado. Replace sausage with whole unprocessed meat seasoned with herbs and spices. Every serving of processed meat you eliminate removes a triple hit of phosphate additives, nitrites, and advanced glycation end products from your kidney's daily burden. Let me put the phosphate additive problem in a broader context because it extends far beyond processed meats. Phosphate additives are used in an astonishing range of processed foods. They are in frozen meals, boxed mac and cheese, cake mixes, pancake mixes, non-dairy creamers, processed cheese, canned biscuits, soft drinks, and even some bottled waters. The food industry uses over 40 different phosphate compounds as additives. A study published in the Journal of Renal Nutrition estimated that phosphate additives contribute an additional 300 to 1,000 milligrams of phosphorus to the daily diet of the average American on top of the naturally occurring phosphorus in food. This additive phosphorus, because it is nearly 100% absorbed compared to the 40 to 60% absorption of natural phosphorus, creates a disproportionately large impact on blood phosphate levels and the fibroblast growth factor, 23 cascade. The fibroblast growth factor, 23 cascade, deserves more attention because it connects phosphate additives to cardiovascular disease, the #1 cause of death in people with kidney disease. When fibroblast growth factor 23 is chronically elevated by excess phosphate, it causes the heart muscle to thicken, a condition called left ventricular hypertrophy. It also promotes the calcification of blood vessels throughout the body, turning flexible arteries into rigid calcium-encrusted tubes. These cardiovascular effects begin long before kidney disease reaches an advanced stage, meaning the phosphate additives in processed meats and other foods are damaging your heart and your kidneys simultaneously. The simplest way to reduce phosphate additive exposure is to eat whole unprocessed foods and cook them yourself. Any food that comes in its natural form, a piece of chicken, a fillet of fish, a handful of nuts, a bowl of rice and beans, contains only natural organic phosphorus that is partially absorbed and generally well tolerated by the kidneys. The moment a food is processed, packaged, and given a long ingredient list, the probability of phosphate additives appearing increases dramatically. Food number 3, sugar-sweetened beverages. This includes soda, fruit punch, sweetened iced tea, energy drinks, sports drinks, and any beverage with added sugar. And the kidney damage from these drinks comes from a specific type of sugar that most people have never thought about: fructose. Most sugar-sweetened beverages are made with high fructose corn syrup, which contains approximately 55% fructose and 45% glucose. Some are made with sucrose, which is split into 50% fructose and 50% glucose during digestion. Either way, the fructose content is what makes these drinks uniquely dangerous for your kidneys. Fructose is metabolized differently from glucose. Glucose can be metabolized by virtually every cell in your body. Fructose is metabolized almost exclusively in the liver. When fructose arrives at the liver in large quantities, which happens every time you drink a soda or sweetened beverage, the liver metabolizes it through a pathway that produces uric acid as a byproduct. Uric acid is one of the most directly nephrotoxic substances your body produces. In the kidneys, uric acid causes damage through 3 mechanisms. First, uric acid crystals deposit in the renal tubules and the interstitial tissue, triggering intense inflammatory reactions that damage the surrounding cells. These crystal-induced inflammatory episodes are like tiny fires burning inside the kidney, destroying tubular cells and promoting the scarring that replaces functional tissue with fibrous tissue. Second, uric acid directly damages the endothelial cells of the renal blood vessels. It reduces nitric oxide production by the endothelial cells, causing the blood vessels to constrict and reducing blood flow to the kidney tissue. Less blood flow means less oxygen delivery to the tubular cells, which are among the most metabolically active cells in the body, and are critically dependent on oxygen for their function. Third, uric acid activates the renin-angiotensin system within the kidney, promoting local vasoconstriction, sodium retention, and glomerular hypertension. This is the same cascade that excess salt triggers, but uric acid activates it through a different molecular entry point, meaning the effects are additive. If you eat excess salt and drink sugary beverages, you are hitting your kidneys with the same damaging cascade from two different directions simultaneously. A landmark study published in the journal Kidney International followed over 15,000 adults for over 20 years and found that consuming 2 or more sugar-sweetened beverages per day was associated with a double the risk of developing chronic kidney disease compared to consuming less than 1 per month. The association was dose-dependent, meaning more sugary drinks meant more kidney damage. Another study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that fructose consumption was independently associated with elevated uric acid levels and accelerated decline in kidney function even after adjusting for total calorie intake, body weight, diabetes, and blood pressure. The fructose in whole fruit is not the same concern. Whole fruit contains fructose, but in much smaller quantities per serving. Packaged with fiber that slows absorption, water that dilutes the concentration, and antioxidants that counteract the oxidative effects. A can of soda delivers approximately 39 grams of sugar, roughly half of which is fructose, in a concentrated bolus that hits the liver all at once. An apple contains approximately 13 grams of sugar, about half fructose, released slowly through digestion. The liver can handle the slow release from fruit. It cannot handle the flood from soda. The solution is complete elimination of sugars sweetened beverages, not reduction, elimination. Replace them with water, unsweetened tea, black coffee, or water infused with slices of cucumber, lemon, or mint. Every sugary drink you do not consume is a dose of uric acid your kidneys do not have to deal with. Let me share one more aspect of the fructose-kidney connection that is particularly alarming. Fructose does not just produce uric acid as a metabolic byproduct. It also depletes a critical energy molecule inside the kidney cells themselves. When fructose is metabolized, it consumes adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the cell, at an unusually rapid rate. In the liver, this rapid adenosine triphosphate consumption is the reason fructose promotes fat storage. But the kidneys also metabolize fructose, and the tubular cells experience the same adenosine triphosphate depletion when exposed to fructose from the blood. Depleted adenosine triphosphate in the tubular cells triggers a cascade of cellular stress responses. The cells generate more reactive oxygen species. They activate inflammatory pathways. They release signals that promote fibrosis. And critically, the adenosine triphosphate depletion impairs the function of the sodium-potassium pump, the molecular engine that powers the reabsorption of essential nutrients from the filtered fluid. When these pumps falter, essential nutrients, including glucose, amino acids, and bicarbonate, are lost in the urine, and the kidney's ability to concentrate urine is impaired. A study published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that fructose exposure caused measurable adenosine triphosphate depletion in renal tubular cells and produced inflammatory and fibrotic changes that were proportional to the fructose dose. The researchers noted that the effect was specific to fructose and did not occur with equivalent doses of glucose. This fructose-specific toxicity is why fruit juice, despite being considered healthy by many people, is also a concern for kidney health when consumed in large quantities. A glass of orange juice contains approximately 21 grams of sugar, roughly half of which is fructose. While this is less than the 39 gram in a can of soda, daily consumption of large glasses of fruit juice can deliver a significant fructose load to the kidneys over time. Eating the whole fruit instead of drinking the juice provides the fructose in much smaller doses alongside fiber that slows absorption, dramatically reducing the acute fructose hit to the liver and kidneys. Food number 4, excessive cooking oils high in omega-6 fatty acids. Soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil. These oils are in virtually every processed food on the grocery store shelf. They are in the fryer at every restaurant. They are the default cooking oil in most American kitchens. and they are causing chronic progressive kidney damage through a mechanism that is only now beginning to be fully understood. These oils are all extremely high in omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically linoleic acid. In small amounts, linoleic acid is an essential fatty acid, but the modern diet provides it in quantities that are 10 to 20 times higher than what the human body was designed to handle. Inside the body, excess linoleic acid is converted to arachidonic acid, which is then converted to a series of pro-inflammatory molecules, including prostaglandin E2, thromboxane A2, and leukotriene B4. These inflammatory mediators have specific well-documented effects on the kidneys. Prostaglandin E2 in excess promotes vasodilation of the afferent arteriole, while the efferent arteriole remains constricted, increasing the pressure inside the glomerulus. This is the same glomerular hypertension that excess salt causes, but driven by inflammatory signaling rather than volume expansion. The result is the same mechanical stretching of the glomerular capillaries, protein leakage, and progressive sclerosis. Leukotriene B4 recruits inflammatory white blood cells into the kidney tissue where they release reactive oxygen species and proteolytic enzymes that damage the tubular cells and the interstitial tissue. This inflammatory infiltration is one of the primary drivers of the interstitial fibrosis that progressively destroys kidney architecture. Thromboxane A2 promotes the aggregation of platelets within the glomerular capillaries, forming microthrombi that reduce blood flow and cause localized ischemia. Repeated microthrombi formation leads to progressive capillary closure and glomerulosclerosis. A study published in the journal Prostaglandins, Leukotrienes, and Essential Fatty Acids found that diets high in omega-6 fatty acids promoted kidney inflammation, increased proteinuria, and accelerated the progression of kidney disease in experimental models. Conversely, diets enriched in omega-3 fatty acids reduced kidney inflammation and slowed disease progression. But there is a second mechanism of omega-6 oil damage that is specific to how these oils are used in the kitchen. When polyunsaturated oils are heated, they oxidize, rapidly producing toxic compounds, including melandihyde for hydroxyenol and acrine. These lipid peroxidation products are absorbed from the food and circulate through the body. The kidneys, which filter the blood, are directly exposed to these toxic compounds as they pass through the renal vascule. 4-hydroxynol has been shown to directly damage renal tubular cells by forming a ductu with proteins and DNA, impairing cellular function and triggering apoptosis. Melandialdehyde promotes cross-linking of proteins in the glomerular basement membrane, thickening and stiffening the membrane and reducing its filtration efficiency. Acrolan depletes glutathione in the tubular cells, leaving them defenseless against the oxidative stress generated by their intense metabolic activity. Research published in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine found that dietary intake of oxidized lipids from heated cooking oils was associated with increased markers of kidney oxidative damage and reduced kidney function in population studies. The solution involves 2 changes. First, replace high omega-6 cooking oils with oils that are more stable and less inflammatory. Extra virgin olive oil is rich in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that is far more stable at cooking temperatures and produces fewer toxic oxidation products. Coconut oil is composed primarily of saturated fatty acids that are highly resistant to oxidation. Butter and ghee are also stable cooking fats with lower omega-6 content. Second, reduce overall consumption of processed and restaurant foods, which are the largest sources of omega-6 oils in the diet. Packaged snacks, fried foods, commercial baked goods, salad dressings, and margarine are all major contributors. Reading ingredient labels and avoiding products listing soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, or canola oil as primary ingredients can significantly reduce your omega-6 exposure. Let me elaborate on why heated vegetable oils are particularly destructive for the kidneys, because this is different from the inflammation caused by unheated omega-6 fatty acids. When you heat a polyunsaturated oil to cooking temperature, the chemical structure of the fatty acids changes within minutes. The double bonds in the fatty acid chains react with oxygen in the air, creating a cascade of breakdown products that were not present in the original oil. The longer the oil is heated and the higher the temperature, the more of these products are formed. Acrylane deserves special attention. It is one of the most toxic aldehydes produced when polyunsaturated oils are heated. Acrylene is the same compound found in cigarette smoke. It has been classified as a toxicant of concern by public health agencies, and it is produced in your kitchen every time you heat soybean oil, corn oil, or sunflower oil in a pan. In the kidneys, acrine depletes glutathione, the master intracellular antioxidant, by forming direct chemical bonds with it. Once glutathione is depleted, the tubular cells are left defenseless against the oxidative stress generated by their intense metabolic activity. The tubular cells of the kidney are among the most mitochondria-dense cells in the body. They generate enormous amounts of reactive oxygen species as a normal byproduct of energy production. Glutathione is what keeps these reactive oxygen species in check. Remove the glutathione with acrylane from heated cooking oil, and the tubular cells begin to sustain progressive oxidative damage. Research published in the journal Toxicology and Applied Pharmacology found that chronic acroan exposure produced dose-dependent tubular cell injury, interstitial inflammation, and early fibrotic changes in kidney tissue. The damage pattern was consistent with the progressive tubular interstitial nephritis that is one of the primary forms of age-related kidney decline. A practical change that makes an enormous difference is to stop deep frying entirely and switch to baking, steaming, sautéing at low temperatures with stable oils, or using an air fryer. If you do sauté, use extra virgin olive oil or coconut oil at medium heat rather than high heat, and never reuse cooking oil. Each reheating cycle multiplies the toxic aldehyde content exponentially. For salad dressings, replace commercial dressings made with soybean or canola oil with homemade dressings using extra virgin olive oil, lemon juice, and herbs. This single switch eliminates one of the most consistent daily sources of unheated omega-6 fatty acids in the typical diet. This is the one that shocked me when I first encountered the research. Artificial sweeteners, the substances that millions of people use specifically because they are trying to be healthier. The ones in diet soda, the ones in sugar-free yogurt, the ones in those little packets at every restaurant table, the ones your doctor may have told you to use instead of sugar. And the evidence that they damage the kidneys is substantial and growing. The most commonly consumed artificial sweeteners include aspartame, sucralose, saccharine, and a sulfame, potassium. Each has different chemical properties, but several of them share a common kidney-damaging mechanism that has only been elucidated in the past decade. Let me start with the gut microbiome pathway because this is the mechanism that connects artificial sweeteners to kidney damage in a way that was completely unknown until recently. Your gut bacteria produce metabolites that enter the bloodstream and must be filtered and excreted by the kidneys. Some of these metabolites are uromic toxins, including indoxyl sulfate and p-cresyl sulfate that are directly toxic to kidney cells. The composition of your gut microbiome determines how much of these uremic toxins are produced. A healthy, diverse microbiome produces relatively low levels. A dysbiotic, imbalanced microbiome produces high levels. Artificial sweeteners have been shown to disrupt the gut microbiome in ways that increase uremic toxin production. A landmark study published in the journal Nature found that artificial sweetener consumption altered the gut microbiome composition in humans, reducing beneficial bacteria and promoting the growth of species associated with inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. Research published in the journal Gut Microbes found that sucralose consumption specifically reduced the populations of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species, which are key butyrate producers that maintain gut barrier integrity and reduce systemic inflammation. The reduction in these species was accompanied by increased intestinal permeability, commonly called leaky gut, which allows bacterial products, including endotoxins, to enter the bloodstream and trigger systemic inflammation that damages the kidneys. A study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology followed over 3,000 women for 11 years and found that consuming 2 or more artificially sweetened beverages per day was associated with a 30% faster decline in kidney function compared to consuming fewer than 1 per month. The association remains significant after adjusting for age, diabetes, blood pressure, body weight, and caloric intake. But the microbiome disruption is not the only mechanism. Some artificial sweeteners have direct nephrotoxic effects that are independent of the gut. Aspartame is metabolized in the body to phenylalanine, aspartic acid, and methanol. The methanol is further metabolized to formaldehyde and formic acid, both of which are toxic. While the amounts produced from normal aspartame consumption are small, the kidneys are the organs responsible for clearing these metabolites, and chronic exposure creates a low-level but persistent toxic burden on the renal tubular cells. Research published in the journal Renal Failure found that chronic aspartame consumption produced measurable changes in kidney tissue, including tubular cell swelling, interstitial inflammation, and early fibrotic changes. These changes were dose-dependent, meaning higher aspartame consumption produced more severe kidney damage. Aliphame potassium, one of the most widely used artificial sweeteners, passes through the body, largely urine metabolized, and is excreted by the kidneys. This means the full dose of the chemical passes directly through the renal tubular cells during excretion. While acylamine potassium has been generally recognized as safe by regulatory agencies, recent research has raised concerns about the cumulative effect of chronic renal tubular exposure. A study published in the journal PLOS ONE found that acylamine potassium accumulation in kidney tissue was associated with oxidative stress markers and early signs of tubular damage in long-term exposure models. The combined effect of gut microbiome disruption, direct nephrotoxicity, and the systemic inflammation triggered by increased intestinal permeability creates a multi-front assault on the kidneys that most people are completely unaware of. The solution is to eliminate artificial sweeteners and find alternative ways to satisfy your sweet preferences. If you need sweetness in your coffee or tea, use a small amount of raw honey, which contains anti-inflammatory compounds that actually support kidney health. If you need a sweet beverage, infuse water with fresh fruit, berries, or cucumber and mint. If you are drinking diet soda to avoid the sugar in regular soda, understand that you are trading one kidney poison for another. Let me address the argument that many people make. The dose is too small to matter. Regulatory agencies have set acceptable daily intake levels for each artificial sweetener, and these levels are based on acute toxicity studies. But the kidney damage from artificial sweeteners is not an acute toxicity problem. It is a chronic cumulative exposure problem. The studies showing kidney damage are in people consuming these products daily for years and decades. Your kidneys filter your entire blood volume approximately 60 times per day. Every artificial sweetener molecule you consume passes through the renal tubules as part of this filtration process. If you drink 2 diet sodas per day for 20 years, your renal tubular cells have been bathed in artificial sweetener metabolites over 14,000 times. The cumulative exposure is enormous, even if each individual dose is small. A study published in the journal Nephrology specifically examined long-term artificial sweetener consumption and kidney outcomes, and found that daily consumers had significantly higher rates of albumin in their urine compared to non-consumers. Albuminura, the leakage of albumin into the urine, is one of the earliest and most reliable markers of kidney damage. Its presence in artificial sweetener consumers suggests that the renal filtration barrier is being compromised by chronic exposure. There is also emerging evidence that artificial sweeteners may directly affect the kidney's ability to concentrate urine. The kidneys rely on an osmotic gradient in the renal medulla to reabsorb water from the tubular fluid and produce concentrated urine. Disruption of this gradient leads to dilute urine and excessive water loss, a condition that can contribute to dehydration and further kidney stress. Research published in the American Journal of Physiology found that sucralose exposure altered the expression of aquaporin water channels in the kidney tubules, potentially impairing the concentrating mechanism. Stevia, a natural zero-calorie sweetener derived from the Stevia rhodana plant, appears to be a safer alternative based on current evidence. Several studies have found that steviol glycosides, the active compounds in stevia, do not produce the gut microbiome disruption seen with artificial sweeteners and may actually have mild anti-inflammatory and blood pressure lowering effects. However, long-term kidney-specific studies on stevia are still limited, and moderation is advisable until more data is available. Now that you know the 5 worst kitchen offenders, let me tell you what actively protects and supports your kidneys. Water. Adequate hydration is the single most important thing you can do for your kidneys. Water dilutes the concentration of everything your kidneys have to process, from sodium to uric acid to urmic toxins to phosphate. It reduces the workload per nephron and prevents the concentration-dependent crystal formation that damages the tubular lining. Aim for 6 to 8 glasses per day, more if you are physically active or live in a hot climate. Your urine should be a pale straw color. Dark yellow means you need more water. Omega-3 fatty acids, the anti-inflammatory counterbalance to the omega-6 fatty acid damage. Omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish, flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts produce anti-inflammatory resolins and protectins that calm the renal inflammation driven by excess omega-6 consumption. They also improve the flexibility and function of the red blood cells, allowing better blood flow through the narrow renal capillaries. Potassium-rich foods. Potassium counteracts the sodium-driven fluid retention and blood pressure elevation that damages the glomeruli. Bananas, avocados, sweet potatoes, and leafy greens are all excellent sources. However, if you already have significantly reduced kidney function, potassium intake may need to be moderated under medical supervision, as damaged kidneys cannot excrete potassium efficiently. Antioxidantic foods, berries, dark leafy greens, and colorful vegetables provide the antioxidants that protect the tubular cells from the oxidative stress generated by their intense metabolic activity. The anthocyanins in blueberries, the quercetin in onions, and the sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts have all demonstrated specific nephroprotective effects in clinical studies. Adequate but not excessive protein. Your kidneys handle the waste products of protein metabolism, primarily urea. Excessive protein intake increases the uroload on the kidneys and can accelerate decline in people with existing kidney damage. But inadequate protein leads to muscle wasting and malnutrition. The balance for most people over 60 with healthy kidneys is approximately 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. For those with existing kidney disease, the appropriate level should be determined by a nephrologist. Herbs and spices instead of salt. Garlic, ginger, turmeric, rosemary, thyme, oregano, basil, cumin, and paprika all provide flavor without sodium. Many of them also provide anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds that actively support kidney health. Making the switch from salt-heavy to spice-heavy cooking is one of the most impactful dietary changes you can make for your kidneys. Let me highlight 3 specific foods that have demonstrated remarkable nephroprotective effects in clinical research. First, garlic. Garlic contains allicin, a sulfur compound that has been shown to reduce kidney inflammation, lower blood pressure, and improve renal blood flow through nitric oxide-mediated vasodilation. A study published in the journal Renal Failure found that garlic supplementation reduced markers of kidney damage and improved kidney function in subjects with early-stage kidney disease. 2 to 3 cloves of crushed garlic per day provides a meaningful protective dose. Second, extra virgin olive oil. Beyond being a safe cooking oil, extra virgin olive oil contains oleoanthol, a phenolic compound that has anti-inflammatory potency comparable to low-to-C's ibuprofen. In the kidneys, oleoanthol suppresses the inflammatory cascades that drive fibrosis without the kidney-damaging side effects that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen actually cause. Using extra virgin olive oil as your primary cooking and dressing oil simultaneously removes the omega-6 oil damage and adds active nephroprotection. Third, cranberries. Cranberry proanthocyanidins prevent bacterial adhesion to the urinary tract and kidney tubular epithelium, reducing the chronic subclinical infections that maintain low-grade kidney inflammation in many older adults. A glass of unsweetened cranberry juice or a handful of fresh cranberries several times per week supports the infection defense that becomes increasingly important as kidney function and immune function decline with age. Let me show you the worst-case scenario that is playing out in millions of kitchens every single day. Breakfast. Bacon cooked in canola oil with a glass of diet soda. The bacon delivers phosphate additives, nitrites, advanced glycation end products, and a heavy sodium load. The canola oil adds oxidized lipid peroxidation products and pro-inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids. The diet soda disrupts the gut microbiome, increases uremic toxin production, and adds direct nephrotoxic metabolites from the artificial sweetener. Lunch, a deli meat sandwich with processed cheese, chips fried in soybean oil, and a sweetened iced tea. More phosphate additives and nitrites from the deli meat. More sodium from the meat, cheese, and chips. More omega-6 lipid peroxidation products from the fried chips. A massive fructose load from the sweetened tea, generating uric acid that damages the renal vascule and triggers glomerular hypertension. Dinner, a meal cooked in corn oil with generous salt, added during cooking, followed by a diet beverage. More omega-6 inflammatory load, more sodium-driven volume expansion, more artificial sweetener gut disruption. In a single day, the kidneys of this person have been hit with excessive sodium driving, glomerular hypertension, and protein leakage, phosphate additives triggering fibroblast, growth factor 23 and vitamin D suppression, nitrites generating reactive nitrogen species in the tubular cells, advanced glycation, end products accumulating in the glomerular basement membrane, fructose-derived uric acid, causing crystal deposition and vascular constriction. Omega-6 inflammatory mediators recruiting white blood cells into the kidney tissue. Lipid peroxidation products depleting glutathione and forming protein adducts in the tubules and artificial sweetener metabolites, disrupting the gut microbiome and increasing uremic toxin exposure. 8 distinct mechanisms of kidney damage in one ordinary day from food that most people consider completely normal. Now, multiply that by 365 days a year, and by 10 years, and by 20 years. This is how kidney function declines from 100% at 30 to 60% at 70, without a single symptom until the damage is severe. Now, let me show you what a kidney protective day looks like using the same meal structure. Breakfast: 2 eggs scrambled in extra virgin olive oil with spinach and fresh herbs. A slice of whole grain sourdough bread, and a glass of water with lemon. The eggs provide protein without phosphate additives. The olive oil replaces the omega-6 cooking oil. The spinach provides potassium and antioxidants. The herbs replace the salt. The lemon water provides citrate that protects against kidney stones and vitamin C that supports kidney antioxidant defenses. Lunch: grilled chicken breast. You cooked yourself, sliced over a large salad with mixed greens, cucumbers, bell peppers, and avocado, dressed with olive oil and lemon juice. A cup of unsweetened green tea. The fresh chicken replaces the processed deli meat, eliminating the phosphate additives, nitrites, and advanced glycation end products. The salad provides potassium, antioxidants, and fiber. The green tea provides cacoins that have demonstrated nephroprotective effects. The unsweetened tea replaces both the sugary beverage and the artificially sweetened one. Dinner: baked salmon with roasted sweet potatoes and steamed broccoli seasoned with garlic, turmeric, black pepper, and rosemary. Water or unsweetened hibiscus tea to drink. The salmon provides omega-3 fatty acids that counteract inflammation. The sweet potatoes provide potassium and beta-carotene. The broccoli provides sulforaphane that activates the kidney's internal antioxidant defenses. The garlic provides allicin for direct nephrop. The turmeric provides curcumin that reduces kidney inflammation and fibrosis. Same number of meals, same effort, same cost, probably less. But 0 of the 8 kidney-damaging mechanisms from the first scenario, and multiple active kidney protective mechanisms from the food choices themselves. The difference between these 2 days repeated over years is the difference between kidneys that maintain function into your 80 seconds and kidneys that quietly fail in your 70 seconds. The good news is that every one of these mechanisms is modifiable through dietary choice. You do not need medication. You do not need supplements. You need to stop putting the poisons in and start putting the protectors in. Your kidneys have remarkable regenerative capacity. When the insults are removed, the tubular cells can repair. The inflammation can resolve, the fibrosis can slow, and in some cases partially reverse, but only if the daily assault stops. 5 kitchen poisons, 8 mechanisms of damage, 1 organ that has been silently absorbing the punishment for decades. Your kidneys cannot scream. They cannot send you pain signals. They just quietly fail until the day a blood test tells you what they have been trying to tell you all along.